Call a regular meeting of the City Council to order. Roll call.
This meeting's being
Oh, and this meeting's being recorded.
Bona,
Here.
Buddington,
Here.
Cohen,
Here.
Harpin,
Here.
Hopkins,
Here.
Lamb,
Here.
LaForest,
Here.
Moran, Wilkinson.
Here.
8 present.
We have no silent remembrance, so we'll just do the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hearing of visitors, anyone wish to speak, please come to the mic. Name and address for the record. Yep, to the mic.
Before I speak, just a clarification. There are several issues up here. Do we speak to these issues now before you discuss them, or when they're up for discussion,
Yeah.
can we talk?
If they are on the agenda, you'll have the opportunity to speak at the issues on the agenda. So this would be a time to speak for something that may not be on the agenda.
Okay. Or can be on the agenda?
Typically, if you're going to speak on something that's on the agenda, save it for that time, okay? Because you don't get really 4 minutes per item.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Visitor Robert Cardamino, 173 East Quincy Street. You know, I wish you'd change the wording of that. I'm very offended by that. I was born here. I was raised here. I went to school here. I was in the military from here. I come back here. I bought a house. I raised some children here. And God knows when I'm going to die, but I'll probably die here. You know, and that's very offensive. Visitor. No, I pay taxes here. You know, I'm not a visitor. I spend my money here. You know, I attend the council meetings here. I am not a visitor. You know, that's very offensive. Visitor. Visitors are people that come to Mocha and go home. When I go home, I live here. So could you please change that when you change the rules? Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I want to say.
My name's David Whitney, 51 Burnham Street. For the last 3 or 4 years, I've been attending quite a few meetings, and I watch it on TV. And I'm kind of concerned that previous years, it seemed like some of the council members thought they were here to represent the mayor. But you're here to represent the people that elected you. And a few times, a lot of times people say something, and it seems like I've had one person ever approach me and say, "What were you talking about?" It's like everybody that makes a comment is stupid. And I just feel like that nobody listens to the people that say anything. That's all I've got to say. I hope the council investigates things that are brought before the council.
Thank you.
Actually, this is in response to what that gentleman just said. My name is Alice Canday, 199 Corinth Street. I find the culture of this committee, of this group, has always been very strange to me, in the sense that I think under the ruse of the open meeting law, you actually can ask a council member a question and get an answer. There are only 2 groups I know that isolate themselves and won't let themselves be asked a question: monarchs and tyrants. You're a democratically elected body. If you feel you're qualified to be a representative, you should feel that you have the obligation to take a question from somebody who comes and answer that question. If you want to obfuscate and not answer it directly, that's any politician's ability. But to actually have a rule in effect that says you cannot answer a councilman's questions, I find very scary. And I did not make the subcommittee hearing because it was after the day I thought it was. And the rule, it seems to be getting worse. The chairman was there, was concerned about having the ability to throw people out whose questions he found dangerous, or that wasn't exactly his word, but that was offensive or something. Well, democracy is messy. If you don't like what you hear, that's part of being an elected official. There seemed, and I'm only quoting from my Berkshire, so if this was not correct, that's where I'm getting my information. The chair of the council seemed worried that the mayor might actually answer a question. Well, he should answer a question, as should you. And there were restrictions that some new members kind of didn't really agree with. They thought they weren't good for the community, but they went along with it. There seems to be an insular atmosphere here, a culture of you're here to serve yourselves, that this is a private club. It's not. If you don't want to answer questions from the public, if you're going to isolate yourself from the public, I don't think you should be a public official. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for hearing of visitors? Call hearing of visitors closed. We will move on to approval of the minutes for January 9th, 2018.
Move to approve.
Second.
Counselor Wilkinson made the motion, and,
Other way around.
oh, sorry, Counselor Buddington made the motion. See, you want me to call the names out, and I'm going to call them out wrong. And Counselor Wilkinson, second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Move on to paper 11,632, a resolution declaring North Adams as a pollinator-friendly community. This was in City Council December 12th, 2017, voted to postpone to a meeting of January 23rd. Do we have any discussion from councilors on this?
Certainly. I followed up with conversations with the Department of Public Works, and the plan is to take it back to the Public Services Committee, but I don't remember what that next meeting was.
Speak into the mic.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Do we know when that meeting was scheduled for offhand?
I think it's February.
I did receive a communication
First week in
from,
February?
what's that? From Chairperson Moran, and I can't remember now if he wanted to move it to the first or second meeting of February, but I know he did ask for it to be postponed again.
Just to be safe, I'm happy to move to make a motion to postpone this to the second meeting in February.
Second.
Any discussion? This is on a resolution declaring North Adams as a pollinator-friendly community. So at this point, there is a motion on the table to postpone this to a further meeting. This will also still be going to a public service committee where obviously the public is welcome to attend and can speak as freely as they wish. So is there any other discussion from councilors or the gallery on pollinating-friendly community?
Do we need a second?
Oh, we didn't, I guess.
Oh, second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have,
Counselor Hoppus. Yes, please up to the mic with your name and address for the record.
My name is Frederick Ferris. Is it working? And I'm actually from Williamstown, Mass., but I work in North Adams at MCLA, and I'm here to support Mass PIRG, who is on campus where they're all across the state, but they're also they have a bee committee that they're doing a pollinator friendly. So I'm from facilities. I'm one of the managers. Facilities, we're supporting this issue, so we're helping them out. We're turning MCLA into a bee-friendly campus. Some of the things we're doing is we're postponing our mowing till later in the spring, and then we're actually stopped mowing earlier in the fall to help the bees. We're also going to plant several flowers and plants around MCLA that are pollinator friendly. We're going to create bee gardens and make them protected. So we're actually trying to become a bee campus. And so if the bees are in trouble and they're starting to decline, the hives, and so if the bees go, we're going to lose. They pollinate a lot of the foods that we get, so those foods are going to diminish or not be available. So
Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Cardamino.
I guess I would just ask, what's the rationale for postponing it? I remember this was being discussed last
Sorry,
year.
first I need your name and address for the record.
Sorry. My name is Erin Kiley. I'm at 218 Prospect Street. And I guess I wonder what the rationale is for postponing this. I
Yeah,
think
the
it's
committee.
the third time it's been postponed.
Yeah, the committee has not been able to meet for a second time, so it's just been a scheduling with the committee members. Plus, counselors have changed positions since then, so committees have changed at the first of the year when everyone was newly elected. So it's a committee scheduling.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Robert Cardamino, 173 East Quincy Street. I would just like to give you a little information. The greatest pollinator in the world is the wind. You don't realize it, but it is. Those were not words. I Google all of this. And also, what affects pollinators, they have the bugs that are out at night are pollinators. And when there's a lot of light with the street lights and everything else, it affects them. They're not so active. The bees are in decline. I understand that. But the wind is the greatest thing that's we got going for it. Okay. And I don't think we're going to lose pollination. But anyway, in Williamstown, there's a big movement on. They're going to Williams College is even going to let the grass grow a little higher, you know, and plant some, you know, some flowers and stuff for the pollination, you know. So we got a lot of stuff going for it, you know. So I wouldn't be too worried about it, but you know, I'm glad you brought this up. I was a little leery of it. I says, you know, what is it? But you got to keep the momentum going, you know, just not sit on it and, you know, declare it and then do nothing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the paper number 11,632, a resolution declaring North Adams as a pollinator-friendly community? Again, this will be going to Public Service Committee for another meeting, and then also coming back here for a final vote. Name and address for the record, please.
Lindsay Vachon, 375 Church Street. I'm from MCLA. I am here on behalf of MCLA's Save the Bees campaign. I'm the student coordinator for that. It's run by actually MassPerg. And we are trying to get MCLA to be the first bee-friendly campus in Massachusetts. So I figured I should come here and tell you guys kind of what is happening on our campus, and I was hoping to maybe share it to the community in hopes that people would jump on board, just because bees are a great bug, as well as, you know, they help us survive. And MCLA, there's a checklist we're working with. We have to get certified by Bee City USA. We have to have like a website, awareness events, educational events. We're going to be working with the facilities to get the use of pesticides restricted. We're also not going to be cutting the grass as late in the fall. So we're just going to be doing things like that, and I just figured that we'd have our voice heard, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this? Yes, Councilor
I just
Cohen.
want to say thank you guys all for coming. This is a great showing for this item. I'm 100% in favor of supporting this, but I do think that it needs to go to committee so that it can be talked more. So please be present at that meeting. I think you're going to be able to have your voice heard a little bit more, and then when it comes back to the council, then we'll be able to decide at that point. But thank you guys all for coming. This is great.
if you stay till the end of the meeting and you want to pass your contact information on to Counselor Bunnington, I'm sure, would be happy to make sure to let you know when the public service meeting is coming up. It will be published, but at the same time, I'm sure he'd be happy to give you a communication. Okay? Thank you. So, a motion to postpone is on the table with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes to postpone.
Mr. President? I'm sorry, this is slightly out of order, but I just was looking it up, and the meeting is February 6th
Okay?
of the Public Services Committee meeting.
That's the actual committee meeting already scheduled?
Yes, it is
Okay.
scheduled for
All right.
the 6th of
Thank you.
February.
Okay. Paper number 11,647-A, a report of the General Government Committee regarding council rules of order. This was in council January 23rd, and they have since met. Councilor
Yes.
Buddington, do you have a report?
I do. All of you should have draft minutes in your packet from this meeting. Rather than summarizing all of this, I hope I'm not the only one in favor of not repeating everything. I will simply summarize, go through the motions that were, the recommendations that were issued by the committee.
To be clear, so you'll go through all the motions, will you ask for one approval at the end, or do you want individual motions and throughout the whole piece?
Oh, at this point, I was just going to make this a report of what the committee
Okay,
was recommending.
that's true, that is, but afterwards, just so people know how you will want it, will be approval on the whole?
I'd be more comfortable doing them one at a time.
Okay,
It
all right, so
seems-
right now is just the communication, and then we'll file that and move on to
Yes.
a motion. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So the motions, the motions actually approved by the committee are these. Recommendation that the council have the hearing of visitors at the end of the meeting rather than at the beginning. Secondly, that recommend adding mayor's concerns as a separate agenda item after the hearing of visitors. A recommendation to under Rule 10 at the beginning to change near the end to at every meeting. That was regarding, I think, where the hearing of visitors occurs. Should I do these in order? Okay, number 4. To recommend the acceptance of the addition of the word verbally to Rule 15F. 15F. And I should mention that is already in the draft rules provided by the council president. Fifth, a recommendation to change the wording regarding under what conditions a motion to move the previous question is acceptable. I can be more specific about that, about the wording when we get to the actual motion for the council's consideration. And finally, number 6, we had a motion to ask Councillor LaForest to submit grammatical corrections that he had suggested to the council president for incorporation. So those were all of the recommendations made by the General Government Committee.
Those were the ones that were recommended to pass.
Yes.
Yes. Anything additional?
Well, I had a motion to allow members of the public to add something to the agenda by petition, but that didn't get a second.
And then did you want to discuss Rule 10 any further?
Sorry, I just went through that too quickly. Rule 10.
Well, because remember, it was, we had to get an opinion.
Oh, that's right. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
That's right. So that, yes, this wasn't an actual motion by the council, but it came up. Council President had added language or had issued language in the proposed rules to allow the president to ban a member of the community from meetings if that person had to be removed by public safety at a meeting. And that he agreed to request a determination from the Attorney General's office as to the legality. I think I feel I should defer to the council president to explain
Sure.
the details of that.
So you did receive 2 sheets in front of you tonight, an opinion from the Attorney General's office, and while a member can be removed during the meeting if disruptive by public safety, they are allowed back at each meeting. However, you do not have to let anyone speak at any time. So the president does have the authority to not allow someone to speak for a number of meetings. The language has been changed, and amended Rule Number 10 has been passed out to show that. Again, these are only the communications right now. We will be moving on to the actual vote where we can move into discussion. So at this point, if there's no other, nothing else on the discussion. Councilor Lamb, did you want to discuss it all on this? I do know you had an opinion on the hearing visitor. I don't know if this is the time you want to say it, or you're just going to...
I'm losing my voice a little bit, but I had submitted a communication to Councilor Buddington, which he included in his report, and it seems like it was not necessarily supported. My suggestion was to keep the hearing of visitors at the beginning, primarily because I felt it was an easier point of access for community members that come at the beginning without necessarily having to stay through the entire duration of the meeting so they could be heard. But, you know, obviously, however the council majority decides to go is how we'll go.
Thank you. So I'll be looking for a motion to accept the communication.
Motion to accept.
Second. That was Councilor. We'll be doing discussion in the next piece.
After you vote on it?
Nope, before we vote. Yep. So there was a motion by Councilor Cohen.
Second.
Second by Councilor Harpen. All right. Now we'll be moving on to paper 11,647, Rules and Order of City Council for 2018.
President?
Yes.
You want to do a vote on that last? We have a motion in a second.
Oh, I apologize.
Just
I
to
keep
accept
missing-
the report.
Just to
Yes.
accept the report. Yeah.
Sure, yes. All in favor of filing, or the communication?
Aye.
Opposed? Paper is filed. Paper 11,647, Rules and Order of the City Council for 2018. This was in City Council, January 9th, 2018. Voted to refer to General Government Committee. Voted to postpone to the meeting of January 23rd. And we are here tonight. Need a motion to, motion to put this on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? So now we are going to be, you know, if you want, if Councilor Buddington wants to go through them individually, is that what you want? Motions on each one?
I feel 7 of the 9 councilors were at this meeting. I think it's fine. I mean, I'm happy to have discussion, but I don't feel the need to reiterate all of it. And I would point out that at least the first motion about recommending that the hearing of visitors be at the end of the meeting is a recommendation to accept what we already have in the proposed rules. And so
But we will actually,
that's not something that needs a change.
well, we're going to be amending the proposal that was originally, so these will be first we got to amend it, is we actually haven't accepted the original proposal. And now we got to approve the amendments that were discussed at the meeting. So we have to have motions on those amendments. So that's where you can either decide if you want each amendment to have a separate motion on, if you want to go through them individually.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that the first one is actually a recommendation not to amend. Because the rules as offered by you at our first meeting had the hearing of visitors towards the end of the meeting. And so the recommendation of the committee was not to change that.
Okay, so we don't need to amend that. Okay?
However, since if we're on that topic,
Excuse me? No. So, yes, go ahead, Councilor Wilkinson.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
So we're not going to get a chance to vote on whether we're moving it or not?
Yes, we will. Right now, the proposals in front of us are what you were originally handed for the council meeting rules.
Yes.
What Councilor Buddington is going to go through are amendments that were changes that were discussed at the meeting to the proposed council rules. So the reason why you said the first one is actually not an amendment, because they accepted it was moving hearing of visitors. So since we actually did not amend that from the original proposal, we don't have to vote on that amendment.
Oh,
When
got
we
it.
are done
Right.
with all the amendments,
Okay.
then we will vote on the paper as a whole. So we'll vote on the paper with the amendments that have been accepted. At any time when a motion is made on these amendments, and a second, there will be discussion. And if someone has something particular to say about that particular amendment, then they can speak. However, if you want to wait till all the amendments are done and then speak on the paper as a whole, that might be the best way to do it, okay? So,
Okay, I think in consideration of what of Councilor Wilkinson's request for clarification, so the first issue of discussion, the first recommendation the committee made was to allow the hearing of visitors to be at the end, and it seems to me that if a councilor would like it moved to the beginning, this would be a reasonable time to discuss that, yes?
or it can be mentioned at the end.
Okay.
When, right now, we're doing all the amendments, so I would probably
Okay.
stick to the, yes?
I don't hear him.
Which,
You can't, you
okay.
can't hear me? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Not talking into the microphone.
Okay.
I'll move it closer. Is this reasonable? Can you hear me now through the microphone?
Through the microphone, I can.
Okay.
Okay. I would only, at this point, stick to the amendments that are actually going to change the original proposal,
Very good.
okay?
Okay, so the second motion is to add mayor's concerns as a separate agenda item after the hearing of visitors.
So I need a motion to amend adding mayor's concerns as a separate line item. When you were given the original proposal, it said guest and mayor together, or they're going to be separated. So I need a motion to accept that amendment.
So moved.
Second.
I got it.
Good. And all in favor, or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No. We're just voting on the amendments at this point. I'll let you know when we're going to vote on the whole paper as a whole, okay?
Voting just to put this forward as an amendment, not to actually.
Correct. These are just amendments to the original proposal. We will be voting on the whole paper after all the amendments. That's when you can get up and discuss, okay? Yep. Yep. All right. Next, please.
Okay. The next is a change to the wording at the beginning of Rule 10 to change the phrase near the end to at every meeting, referring to when the hearing of visitors will be.
So I believe previously it said it said at the beginning or near the beginning. Now it will say at every meeting, so it doesn't specifically say that, so.
Right. And the reason I had
Oh.
recommended that was so that we can just make sure that that's following changes and we don't have to continue to change.
Well, a motion to accept that amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. Did you get that? Okay. Now, any discussion? All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
I think he's going to get to that. Yeah, he's doing them all separate.
The fourth proposal or recommendation was regarding the wording of 15F, adding the word verbally, but that is in the proposed rules that the council president presented to us, so that is not,
Okay.
would not be a change. The fifth proposal was to accept the change in wording proposed by the council president regarding moving the previous question. I'll just quote this paragraph. The proposal is to amend the phrase, quote, "A motion to move the previous question shall only be admitted when seconded seconded and voted by 2/3 of the city council members, by appending thereafter, quote, and all members who haven't spoken have had the opportunity to speak at least once.
So I need a motion to accept that amendment.
So moved?
Second.
Okay. So discussion. So again, the only change there is if someone moves to question, it will allow any counselor who hasn't spoken at that time a last chance to speak. So that's what that amendment is. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion approved, or amendment approved. Next, please.
Okay, finally, there was the committee requested that Councillor LaForest chair his suggested grammatical corrections to the council president, but I gather those are those too numerous to just list verbally here?
So typically, I think we would hand those in writing, though, correct? So I don't know if we want to just pass on that. He said,
Okay.
unless you have them in writing?
No, I don't have them prepared in writing, and I apologize for not submitting those. They're about a half a dozen, and they're primarily just misplaced apostrophes and things like that. It doesn't change the intent of the language in the rules.
All right. Do you call, you want to pass that, or do you want to want a motion, or you want to pass on that right now?
I don't see that there's a motion to be made. I would suggest that the council can modify our own rules in the future with a 2/3 vote, and it's not a big deal. So I would suggest leaving it for now.
Just one more. I handed it out.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm sorry. I was just looking at my own notes. Here it is. So the council president has suggested that we amend rule number 10. Let's see.
You want, yes.
I was just going to suggest that you read it into the record.
Yes, I was trying to figure out how to phrase it correctly because I'm not entirely sure where. Is this the last paragraph of Rule 10?
Oh, yes, this is the one of the, I don't know specifically which paragraph, but this is the only paragraph that is changing, and the red, for the counselors who have the color paper, is the new verbiage.
The middle paragraph.
Yes,
Okay.
middle paragraph.
Okay, so the motion would be after the sentence, quote, the president will rule a member of the public who uses such slurs, connotations, libelous remarks, or innuendo out of order and request that the individual be seated and be silent, to replace the rest of that paragraph with the following. If the member continues to disrupt the meeting, they will be asked to leave. If the member refuses to leave, public safety personnel will be ordered to remove them. In the case public safety must remove the member, that member may not be allowed to speak at a number of meetings determined by the president.
So, motion to amend,
So moved.
second,
Second.
discussion.
I'd just like to clarify for the public, because I'm not sure how whether we stated this clearly enough. This was following a discussion of whether the council president had the authority. Oh, I did mention this, didn't I? To prevent somebody from attending a meeting, and it was clarified by the state that our authority is limited to allowing people to speak or restricting that.
The addition to this is actually something that's already set. It's allowed by the state. I just adding it to clarify that it is something the council has the ability to do. So it is not changing a rule that we can't already do. It's just, I feel, by allowing, it sort of makes the president, I think at that time, remind the member what can happen. They don't have to by law, and they could just, future meetings, just not allow them to speak. But I think by putting this rule in there, it actually is said publicly. So that's what that is. It's nothing that is new that the president hasn't been able to do before. Any other discussion?
Well, I know you have the authority to do it, but I just think this is an infringement a little bit on the First Amendment, so I can't go along with this. I just don't feel comfortable.
Any other discussion? Yes.
I fully support the chair's ability to rule during a particular meeting, but I'm not in favor of determining at a particular meeting that a citizen or a guest at the meeting would not be able to voice their opinion at future meetings.
Okay.
Again, I respect the ability, of the chair's decision in silencing, a rowdy or out of order guest in the gallery, citizen in the gallery at each particular meeting.
Any other discussion? Yes.
I think more in support of this, that if there's a member of the public who disrupts a meeting sufficiently that public safety is required to actually remove them from the meeting, I think it is reasonable to prohibit them from speaking at least the following meeting, just because if somebody has a demonstrated tendency to disrupt a meeting to that degree. And I should note that this amendment does not allow the president to prevent anybody from speaking unless they have actually been removed by public safety.
Is that kind of like giving them a spanking punishment?
I see it as seeing bad behavior and trying to prevent it from recurring.
Yes,
I
Councilor
don't
Harpen,
believe we
and
should
then-
have the authority to
Oh, excuse-
discipline.
yeah, Councilor Harper and then Councilor Cohen.
I am going to vote for this because I think we need to keep order in the council chambers, and this is a good way to do it. We definitely go out of our way to try to, accommodate citizens and anybody that wants to come here and speak. You're going to be able to speak at the end of the meeting. You're going to be able to speak at any agenda item. You also can approach any one of us counselors and ask us to put something on the agenda that you would want on the agenda. So I just think there's a lot of opportunity to speak. I think this is I think Councilor Lamb has mentioned this before, this is a board meeting of the city of North Adams, and it should be respected. And Councilor President Boda was elected by the citizens of North Adams and also elected by this body. And I think we have to have faith in his ability to make the decision of when this room is out of control, and he needs to make decisions based on that. So that's why we elected him, and I'll support this.
Councilor Cohen, yes.
I would not have been behind this if the member could not come back to the chambers for the meetings, but I will definitely stand behind President Bona on this because as much as I respect the First Amendment, I also think that we're adults and we need to act accordingly. And if you are escorted out of the chambers for, I would say it would probably be a reasonable reason, I would stand behind the president's decision to not have them speak for the next meeting or so. But I would hope that it would be not for a longevity, that we still have to respect the fact that things do happen and people do get a little heated, but we need to keep order in here. We have business to do, so.
Councilor LaForest.
So I just want to clarify that the First Amendment does not cover all speech within an organized government meeting. And so the Massachusetts general law specific to the open meeting law and also the wording of the city council does enable the president to request that an individual be seated and be silent at an individual meeting. And so, again, I'll reiterate that I won't support silencing people at future meetings, but I do respect the ability of the chair to make this action at individual meetings.
Any other councilors? I'd just like to respond to a couple things, obviously, since I put it forward, that, again, this is a case of if things get very disruptive. And I'm not also looking at it for just the counselors, but the time that is required to have our public safety have to come here, the time it delays the meeting, but really almost more the public safety. I think they have better things to do than to be monitoring our meeting or to be coming out over to remove someone who is disrupting our meeting. So I do feel there should be some bite behind that. Now, here's the thing, it doesn't have to pass, and I can still do it. So what this is putting sort of in our rules is more or less for me to have to say it if it happens, but I can do it with or without this in there. I prefer to have the approval of the council behind this. But again, I think each case is always going to be different. It is not a case I prefer to have someone suspended to speech for a long period of time, but at the same time, I feel respect is two ways, and sometimes something needs to be done to get that. But any other discussion, and then it will. Then this is the last amendment, and then we will be approving the paper as a whole. So, so right now, a motion to accept this last amendment.
Motion to accept?
And that was Councilor Cohen. And a second?
Second.
Right. And then, should this be a roll call? Let's do a roll call on this. This is not going to be on the whole thing. This is just the amendment.
Buddington,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Forrest,
No.
Wilkinson,
No.
Bona.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So you just voted to accept this amendment?
No.
The amendment, yes.
We voted to accept the amendment. We have not voted to accept the meeting rules. So now that will come up for the whole package. So now I need a motion to accept the meeting rules with all the amendments we just passed.
Motion to accept?
Councilor Cohen,
Second.
Councilor Harpen. Now, any discussion from councilors on the entire council rules, and then it will go to the public. Yes, Councilor Buddington.
I'm not satisfied with our longstanding rule to not respond in any way to people bringing concerns to the council. I do not believe the open meetings law in Massachusetts requires us to remain silent. What it does require is that we do not take action on items not on the agenda, and it strongly discourages deliberating on issues not on the agenda. But it certainly does not prevent us from answering simple questions or having discussion that doesn't rise to the level of deliberation. And I think we've, over many years, made the council a less friendly place by having people speak for 2 minutes to the council and just watching them and not responding. It seems antisocial, and I think it discourages public involvement.
Any other discussion from councilors? Discussion from the public?
Again, Alice Canday, 199 Corinth Street. A few comments. One as to what Mr. Buddington just said. I also feel that it talks about actions and deliberations. It doesn't talk about clarifications or supporting your point of view. I find it is the most undemocratic thing I can imagine, that an elected body says you may not ask somebody a question and get an answer. You can always obfuscate your answer. You can always not give a direct answer. But to be a priori told that you may not talk to us is, again, only done by monarchs and tyrants. That is not what democracy is about. And if you're uncomfortable with your position, then you shouldn't be in office if you can't accept public feedback. Somebody comment that we went out of our way to accommodate the public. These discussions have been, with the exception of Mr. Buddington, exactly the opposite. You wanted to, during the subcommittee hearing, 2 new members said they felt according to iBerkshires, felt somewhat uncomfortable about moving the open forum to the back of the meeting. It wasn't convenient for the public, but they went along with it anyway. That's not going out of your way. Somebody mentioned it's a two-way street. Well, respect is a two-way street, and you have to respect the public. When you refuse to answer questions, that is absolutely disrespectful. And then there's the question of disruptive. But what do you mean by disruptive? You act like we're going to be attacked by ISIS people here. There's this question, there's this culture in this committee, there's always been, to protect yourselves, to not answer questions, and frankly to treat the public as an annoyance, and just go on about your way. I just find this very scary, actually, and that meeting about the rules was very depressing. It was no talk about opening it up to the public. It was all about restrictions. It was all about moving it to the end, which two people admitted was inconvenient, but they went along with it anyway. But mostly Mr. Buddington's comment that it is absolutely, I think, obscene to have an elected body that says, you may not ask us a question and get an answer. I would ask how you could justify that, but I'm not allowed to talk to you. So I'm basically talking to the air.
Thank you.
And
Your
that's
2
it.
minutes are up. Anyone else like to speak to this? Yes. Name and address for the record, please.
Paul W. Marino, 70 Vesey Street. I have a suggestion to make that's based on semantics more than anything. I agree that the comment about calling visitors is a bad idea. I would like to see the City Council change that to comments from citizens. Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion? Yes.
Yeah, I would just like to say at the meeting that we had when we were talking about moving citizens' concerns in the beginning or the end, or having that discussion, basically what I thought is, it's a double-edged sword for citizens. I mean, it's great that you could have it at the beginning because you can come in here, say what you have to say, and then not have to wait for the whole meeting in order to make your point, or if it's something that's on the agenda item, you can wait for the agenda item and speak at the beginning and the agenda item. But moving it to the end also has its advantages because you get to hear what everybody else is saying throughout the meeting. So you're more informed and you have more knowledge at that point, and you can ask a question at the end of the meeting that you might not have had the knowledge of asking at the beginning of the meeting. So that's why, I believe either way it works. I think putting it at the end is actually more an advantage because citizens are here, they're listening, and they can make points that they want to make at the end after they've heard what the discussion is.
Yes, Councilor.
Somewhat, well, in response to both Mr. Cardamino and
Marino.
Mr. Marino's points, in thinking on this, I don't know if I can pose an amendment at this point, or if that would be. So I feel like amending that is appropriate at this point. It's been brought up numerous times by a number of folks, and it was by no means meant to be offensive when we changed that originally. Visitors might be correct, but I also feel like it's not necessarily just residents that come to these meetings and speak. We do hear from folks from other communities as well. We do hear from businesses that might be coming in and have some thoughts as, outsiders coming in potentially. So I'm wondering if hearing of community might be something that we could look at as the language change there, just to accommodate everyone, including folks that are here as folks that are just coming through as visitors, but also the residents and people that have been here.
If you want to make that a motion and we get a second, we can discuss it.
So a motion to amend from hearing of visitors to hearing of community.
Second.
Any discussion further on that?
I approve of the change of that part of the meeting. I think when we're specifically describing which people would be speaking at the meeting, we're pretty much defining it in practice as anybody not actually on the council. And so it's very hard to find any specific word that's a group of people that pretty much means everybody in the world, because even citizens, if one were to get pedantic, and I hope we never do, but citizenship is not a requirement of speaking at our council meetings. And so I approve of the use of the word community instead of visitors. It does get the idea across. But I think visitors works logically pretty well in the text of the rest of the rules.
Any other discussion from counselors? I have no strong opinion either way. For most of my terms, it was called open forum, which was as generic as it can get, and it didn't call anybody anything. It just said it was open forum, and it was for citizens, visitors, guests, anybody who walked through that door. But I am fine with hearing of community if that is the motion on the table and the council's acceptance of that. Keep in mind, these rules can be changed at any time, so if in the year we come up with a better name, you can always come forward. But right now, I would need, if any discussion on hearing of community. Yes, up to the mic, please. Name and address for the record.
Roger Urban, Ashland Street, North Adams. Community is kind of an interesting comment, interesting title, but I think public would be more appropriate. Hearing of the public. That encompasses everybody. Secondly, doesn't the president of the council have the right to recognize before a person speaks? If they do, then all they have to do is not recognize an individual. It's not limiting their right to speak.
Any other yes.
So, point of
Councilor
information. So, are we?
Right now, we're only going to be voting on the amendment of changing hearing of visitors to hearing of community. That's what we're voting on right at the moment. We still have not done a full vote on the whole council paper.
No, I understand that. So I just wanted to question the wording, and it is pedantic, at this point. And to Mr. Urban's point, and I was thinking the same thing, that someone addressing the council may not be from the community, and the chair has indicated that previously this was known as open forum. Perhaps, see, I don't know if it's appropriate to say this, given there's an amendment, perhaps we should just change it back to open forum, and then members of the community, visitors, citizens, and others would be welcome to address the council.
Yes, Councilor Lamb.
I'm open to that, and the only thing I was going to say to Mr. Urban's point is I've had thought about that, and my concern was we also have public hearings, which is another category of things, so having those stacked on top of each other might be confusing for folks, but I think going back to open forum is fine, so I can rescind my motion.
Rescind your motion. Okay, Councilor Lamb rescinds his motion. And do we have a new motion?
So I motion to amend the order of business to include open forum.
Or to change.
To change hearing of visitors to open forum.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? Currently, we will be changing, this vote is going to be only to amend and change hearing of visitors to open forum. Any?
Robert Cardamino, 173 Quincy Street. The only thing I got to say is thank you.
Yes.
Alice Canday, Corn Street. If this includes an open forum, then what about Mr. Buddington's point and mine about your answering our questions? That seems to have fallen on deaf ears, and nobody's talking about that.
I'll be glad to.
Okay, Councilor Wilkinson.
Yes. There's plenty of chance for counselors to answer questions. Maybe not in the middle of this meeting. We have committee meetings. People know where to find me. I have lots of people that come and ask me questions all the time. My office is right on Church Street. We have people walk right in the front door and ask questions all the time. I don't think this is an appropriate forum for back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's disruptive to the meeting. You have plenty of time to answer questions in a different venue. It just doesn't have to be right here this time.
Excuse me, you have to, and then actually, we're actually still also on the amendment of specifically changing the
Sorry.
name. That's all right.
It hit a hot button.
We got a little off topic there. So right now, I'm going to be looking for, we have a motion and a second on changing to open forum. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, so that's been changed. So now we are back to the entire city council rules. And anyone else who has not spoken already on this that wishes to speak? Okay, so I believe we still have them. Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
Can I just say, just on your point, if you look at, and you could get a copy of the rules of order that we have, the hearing of visitors does state that you can ask, we cannot take action, but the counselors can present factual information to make it correct, so they can clarify things for you. So the back and forth debate can't happen. So I just wanted to clarify that we can speak to you. I don't want you thinking that we can't speak. So please look at the rules of order when you get a chance for clarification of stuff.
Thank you. Any new comments? Yes.
I guess.
That have not spoken on this, yes. Well, you have. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You can speak.
Well, I just want to say again that, our email addresses and phone numbers are on the website. We're accessible for questions at all times. The issue, if I may, through the chair, is that there's a very fine line between deliberation and violation of the open meeting law and being referred and having to respond to the State Ethics Commission for crossing that very fine line at every meeting or multiple times a meeting would be cumbersome and very inefficient, for, the purpose of democracy in the United States, or, in the city. And as a point of privilege, this is only the second meeting of this council, so I'm concerned that there's an assumption that there's a culture has developed over the course of 2 meetings.
Mr. Carney, I believe you've already spoken on this, and who has not spoken? Yeah. Okay. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, Brian Sapienza, 113 Pleasant Street. My question is about the removal of a citizen that has disrupted the meeting. I don't believe it's the position of the council to discipline that person, because if the person speaks, disrupts the meeting, yes, I agree that the person should either be removed or quieted by the council president to regain the order of the meeting and to carry on the business. However, if that person has an agenda item to speak about on, say, the next meeting, and they don't have the opportunity, I feel that's against their right of free speech to speak against a new agenda item. So if a person is silenced for a number of meetings for whatever reason, and an agenda comes up that they really feel that they need to speak on, and they can speak without disrupting the meeting, I don't think that the council should be allowed to prevent that person from speaking on that particular agenda item.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor.
Just for terminology, it does say may not, so that's at the discretion of the president. So I think that, he's pretty reasonable that if you talk to him after and have a conversation, it's not will not. So just wanted to throw that terminology in there.
Thank you. Just roll call or all in favor? Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead.
May I, through the chair, for the point of, clarification on this, and the chair referenced this earlier, I'd just like to read a line from the communication you received from the Attorney General's office, and this is from Assistant Attorney General Hannah Rush, who says that we cannot bar, or the chair, I'm sorry, cannot bar individuals from attending future meetings, but does say, and I quote, "A public body can, however, decide whether to restrict or prohibit an individual from speaking during any meeting," end quote, and that's consistent with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F. So, to the chair's point earlier, this is something that, an action that is allowed by Massachusetts General Law and is not a personal, assumption of power by the chair or the council.
Thank you. Anyone else? Should you,
need a motion.
I think we already did.
motion to accept the rules as a whole?
We have that motion.
I think that was.
Yeah.
But we didn't do
Yes.
an amendment since making that motion.
Did it to me again.
I know.
There's been so much going on.
All right, so I guess,
Still new.
do we want to do a roll call? All right, let's do a roll call vote on this.
Buddington,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Forrest,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Reluctantly, yes.
Bona,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Whew. Okay. Moving on to paper number 11,648. Communications submitted by Councilors Harpen and Lamb requesting the City Council work with the Mayor's office regarding domestic violence. We need a motion to refer, or correct? Or how do you want to do this, Councilor Lamb?
Motion to refer, I think, would be.
I guess we don't know who.
We don't exactly know who we're referring it to at this juncture. So that's, actually, it might just make sense to read the communication to the record.
All right, so we'll,
That would be nice.
so motion to.
Yeah, I'll read it and then, okay, so just for the public, so everyone knows exactly what we're discussing here tonight, this is the communication as it is written. Dear fellow councilors, in recent weeks and in light of the tragic murder of one of our community members, we are in the midst of an elevated community realization that domestic violence is an issue that exists here. While this is not something new, it is something that our residents are increasingly concerned about. Numerous organizations and entities in the Berkshires have been working on this issue for years, though knowledge of that work and available resources may not be as well known to residents as it could be. Knowing that what is done, or what is being done and can be done, is important. As we know, a multi-pronged approach aimed to tackle the core components of domestic violence offers the best potential to decrease the rates of it and positively impact public safety. With that, we are hereby requesting that this council work with the mayor's office to bring the issue of domestic violence to the appropriate city-based commission or board best suited to address the issue. Our hope is that the identified entity can work to provide increased awareness of the available resources, better information pertaining to ongoing work of municipal and community organizations around the issue, and develop additional actionable steps that the community can take to further combat domestic violence here in the city of North Adams. We look forward to working with you, the mayor, and our community partners in conducting this important work to improve the safety and well-being of our residents. Sincerely, Councilor Harpen and Councilor Lamb. So in initial discussions, we hadn't necessarily landed on the group that this would best be suited. So a lot of this is working specifically with the mayor's office to get there.
So currently, we have a communication in front of us, and we would need a motion to accept the communication, but typically it might be a motion to accept and refer. But if we just motion to accept, we can get a second and discuss it, but then it's not a refer, so we would have to amend that. So how would you like to proceed?
Something could still be referred even later on. It could still be referred
Absolutely.
after. Yeah.
But if we just do a motion to accept the communication and a second, it can go into discussion if that's what you would
It
wish.
can?
I think so, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, you need
Yeah.
a motion to
Yeah.
discuss
Yeah.
it, and,
Yeah.
motion to file.
Right.
motion to-
So
So a motion to
To-
accept the communication?
Second?
Should that perhaps be to file?
No, because filing puts it away.
Filing,
Shouldn't
they
really
kill
be-
it.
you
Filing
wanna-
kills, basically.
Right.
You want to make, refer it somewhere.
Can you-
Refer it to the
Because
mayor's
it-
office, discuss it,
We-
and then move.
No, but it just
Refer it to
becomes.
the-
How can you
more of
accept
a
a
living
communique?
thing,
No,
so
you
it
don't
goes
accept
forward.
it.
You can't accept a communique.
You want to refer it to either the mayor's office or to a committee.
Yeah.
And then discuss it, and then change it.
Do we
if
still
you
get
want.
discussion?
So refer it, we should probably really need to have it referred to, again, the mayor's office or a committee. Otherwise, if you motion to file, it's going to be dead.
Right,
And
no, we
if you
don't-
motion to accept, it doesn't really do anything with it. It's
Okay.
almost like filing it, so.
So I will rescind my initial motion and a motion to refer to the mayor's office.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, Counselor Harpen.
Yes, I'm so glad that Counselor Lamb had approached me about this. I think it's great that this is coming from both a woman and a man on the council. I think that's important because a lot of people think domestic violence is just a woman's issue, and it is actually a, both gender issue. It's a community issue. It's a family issue. So I just wanted to thank him for that. I also just want to mention, which I'm sure most of the community was very upset when they heard of the murder on January 5th. I spoke to Police Director Casalio today just to get some facts of basically where we are with domestic violence in our police department. And in the last 10 years, our community, North Adams, has had 3 murders. One was July 2008, and that was a domestic violence murder. There was a murder on September 17th, 2013, and that was a murder of an elderly woman by a friend of her son's. And then on January 5th, 2018 of this year, just recently, we had another domestic violence murder. Also, not in North Adams, but in a community nearby, there's also a woman that's been missing since March 2nd of last year, 2017. The investigation is ruled a homicide, and her body is still not found. So these are the facts. We've had 3 murders in North Adams in the last 10 years. 1 woman is missing in our community since last year. And, you know, at least 2 out of 3 of these are definitely domestic violence. So to me, I think that is a shout out to us as a body and our government and leadership to point that out and make the community aware of it and discuss it and have dialogue about it and bring it to the open and awareness and education. So that's what Councilor Lamb and I are suggesting, and that's why we're here tonight. We do have a few folks here from the Elizabeth Freeman Center that would like to speak on domestic violence. I know Liz is here. She's, you know, been a staple at the Northern Berkshire District Court advocating for women in domestic violence for the last 16 years. So it's Liz and Elizabeth Freeman, if you would like to.
Yes, you can up the mic, and since you're part of the discussion involved in the topic that Councilor Harpen, you're going to be providing information on this topic, so you are not limited to 2 minutes.
Okay. My name's Elizabeth Mitchell. I'm a North Adams resident, but I'm going to decline to give my address for safety concerns because of my job. So I just want to share some statistics with you about the general community in North Adams specifically, so that you get an idea really of how big the problem is. In 2016, there were 152 assaults and 20 rapes reported in North Adams. Although domestic violence, domestic assaults were not extrapolated out of the assaults in the report, I can say that from witnessing cases in the Northern Berkshire District Court from day to day, I think that 152 out of those, a pretty large number of those were domestic assaults. The Department of Children and Families estimates that between 30 and 60% of homes where there's domestic violence is also child abuse. They consistently identify North Adams and Pittsfield as 2 of the 4 communities in Massachusetts with the highest rates of child abuse and neglect. In Berkshire County, the per capita rate for abuse prevention orders is 23% higher than the state average, and 22% higher for harassment prevention orders. In North Adams, the rate of abuse prevention orders is 37% higher than the state average. In North Adams District Court in 2017, there were 217 applications for abuse prevention orders and harassment prevention orders. Although this number reflects all of Northern Berkshire, I myself have had 218 client contacts specifically from North Adams in 2017. There are Safe Plan advocates, which I am a Safe Plan advocate, stationed in North Adams District Court, the Pittsfield Probate and Family Court, and the Great Barrington District Court. Of those courts, my numbers are the highest. The Elizabeth Freeman Center in 2017 provided services to 418 clients in our North Adams office. Just one of our adult counselors in the North Adams office had 590 client contacts in 2017. That's how big the problem is in North Adams. I think we really need to find a way to address it. The Elizabeth Freeman Center has worked to address it with responders, service providers in the community. It's sometimes difficult to get people at the table because it's a difficult issue to talk about. There needs to be better collaboration. There needs to be better training. There needs to be better education, getting the word out to the community better. And I think that the city council and the mayor's office is the best way to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Harper, was there anyone else, or was that the only speaker? No.
I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilors first. Any other councilors? Then back to the, yes.
This is very real, and I just want to say that this is local government's problem. As soon as every single one of us stand up to domestic abuse, child abuse, and the horror that goes on in people's lives, this will never end. So I stand behind this communication. I will work with whatever agencies we need to make sure that people are standing up and having a voice. So thank you for coming. Thank you.
Councilor Forrest.
Well, I was wondering, we're referring this to the mayor's office. I was wondering if we should also refer it to the Public Safety Committee.
Can you do both?
You can do both. Councilor Lamb can amend his original motion.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So I would rescind just amend my.
Just amend.
Motion. So amending my motion to referring to the mayor's office and the Public Safety Committee.
Do we need to vote on that amendment? And he just, all right, so we need a second on the
I'll
amendment.
second it.
And then all in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so it has been amended. So back to, it is now, would be going to the mayor's office and the Public Safety Committee. Yes, Councilor Lamb.
One thing I would like to say is that in drafting this with Councilor Harpin, I also did connect with the mayor briefly on this, and there may be some opportunity for some commissions that currently exist. One thing that I think we might not want to do is create a whole new board to conduct this work, but we do have some really great folks that already are in commissions and boards in this community, and they may be able to be utilized to an even greater extent to do this work in some way, shape, or form. So there's some investigation and inquiry there that's already sort of begun. But I do think bringing this to the Public Safety Committee for further discussion would be a great decision, while also referring it to the mayor's office for some additional guidance in the direction of wherever this ends up going for sort of a long-term, not just doing this once to talk about it once, but doing this for the long haul to make sure that we're actually making positive, long-lasting impact.
Any other councilors? Yes. Mr. Cardamino, yes, please. Yep.
Robert Cardamino, 173 East Quincy Street. I want to thank you, Councilor Lamb, for bringing this forward. But if you remember, back in 2017, I don't know what meeting it was published by the state that North Adams has the highest crime rate in the state. North Adams. This councilor was silent about it. And I'm glad they're going to start to make some noise. What the reason is because I think it's that we don't have a lot of jobs, and people are just, just giving up, and our drug rate is, who knows what it is, and we're taking some steps in the right direction, but it's still, I think, and I stated at that meeting, per capita, and now that we have 4 murders, our crime rate in North Adams per capita is higher than Chicago. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this matter? Mayor, did you have anything? No?
I would just, first of all, thank the councilors for bringing this forward. I did have a brief connect with Councilor Lamb, and we are really challenged in trying to determine what is the appropriate entity through the city to provide some attention to this, recognizing that it is something, as Councilor Cohen said, that we all have an obligation to take responsibility for as civic leaders. I would also thank the representatives of the Elizabeth Freeman Center who are here and acknowledge work of other community agencies that are working on this, the coalition, And I know that they're looking at ways to do a different and deeper job of building awareness through their community resources of what is available. Councilor Harpin has spoken to me about her interests in connecting to the schools on these issues, and I think that's an absolutely vital area that we want to work on. But what the organizing entity of this should be is really the open question, and finding the right way to bring city attention to work that is everyone's work, but also work that benefits from the coordination and the collaboration with trained professionals, with people who are doing unbelievable and unbelievably difficult work, not just for the clients served, but for those who are on the front lines. And I'm sympathetic to the idea of asking people who are doing that difficult work to also do the invisible work and the organizing work as well. So we're going to have a good conversation about how we tap into your knowledge, your experience, your resources, and how we use the city in the appropriate way to partner with you.
Thank you. Any last comments? There is currently a motion on the table to accept the communication and refer it to the Public Safety Committee and the Mayor's Office. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion to refer passes. I did not see any correspondence, were there? Nope, no correspondences. I did not see any licenses. This will be the last time we do it in this order. Councilors and mayor's concerns. Yes, Councilor Lamb.
I just wanted to note that census forms have gone out. Everyone should have received those in the mail. I believe they went out late last week, so you should have gotten them either over the weekend or yesterday or today. And so please return those as soon as possible. It says 10 days on the actual form to return them, but the sooner the better. It's really important that we have that information in terms of the operations of the government, and also is how you can register your dog. So anybody that has a dog out there, make sure that you're filling out that paperwork and sending that in as well.
Councilor LaForest, then Councilor Harpin, and did you have, and so.
You want us to talk about?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So are these going to be all the reports? Are you going to give reports?
Well,
Yes.
before we do that, I just wanted to make an announcement, and then I'll give way to Councilor Cohen or Harpin, whoever was next, and I'll come back in at the end. So I just want to make known, and it has been published, that the North Adams Retail Marijuana Zoning Working Group, it's a long title, but an important group, does have their public hearing tomorrow, January 24th at 6:30 here in council chambers. And we will be seeking and hearing public input from, or in regard to the proposed zoning ordinances regarding retail marijuana.
Thank you. I did request that the city council members that attended the MMA conference, the option to report on their experience and anything they can bring forward that may benefit the city. So I do know Councilor Harpin has a report. Councilor Cohen, you have a
Yeah, I have an announcement too.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
keep mine
All right.
brief.
And Councilor LaForest, did you have something? Were you going to report or?
Ditto.
Yes.
Not to put you on the spot, you didn't have
Oh,
to do
no,
it
no,
this
no, I do.
meeting. Everyone was very prompt and had it done their first meeting. So I'll start with Councilor Cohen, do your announcement, and then maybe move into your.
Yeah, that's fine.
Your,
That's fine.
and then we'll go to Councilor Harpin and then Councilor LaForest. Okay?
So I had the pleasure, I am the liaison for McCann Technical School, so I went to the first meeting. Amazing school. They're making huge strides in education and in vocational education. And I got an email from Superintendent Brosnan today asking me to read the iBurschers article and just give props to McCann Junior Justin Perry. He will be competing in the Microsoft Office Specialist National Competition in Atlanta, Georgia this summer. And the reason for that is because he scored so highly on his Microsoft Office certification written exam in November, that they picked him. So he scored 982 out of 1,000. I thought that was pretty amazing. If he wins there, then he's going to be going to the world competition held in Orlando, Florida. So I love seeing young people do amazing things. So kudos to Justin Perry. And then the Mass Municipal Annual Meeting, I did a whole 6-page report because I had so much fun. It was amazing. I can't say enough good things about it. It was great for networking. We met with some amazing people that are going to help me. I can talk to them moving forward as a counselor. As a new counselor, it was amazing because I learned so much stuff that I wouldn't necessarily come up in meetings. So my favorite part, because I won't go through the whole thing, is the dealing with spillover effects of the opioid crisis. I went to a workshop and I learned a lot of stuff from the Chief of Police of Chelsea and some things that they've been doing in their city that are helping with some of the crime rates and with recidivism occurring in Chelsea. And they're just small things you can do, including cleaning up back alleys that have broken glass or graffiti, moving trash receptacles out of common areas where people are hanging out and using them as gathering areas. I think that we can learn from other cities. So that was the best thing that I got out of the whole conference. I also got to spend some great time with my friends here, my colleagues, and I would love to go again next year. That's pretty much it for me. Like I said, I could go on and on. I sent you guys my report.
Got the report, but not the cannolis.
Oh, well, the cannolis, that's on Facebook.
She
You guys
sent
can see the
pictures to
picture,
every one
yeah.
of her
I gained about
Boston
5 pounds on the
cannolis.
trip.
Cannoli didn't make it past dessert, I'm sorry.
Okay. So, Councilor Harpen.
Yeah, I have a couple things as well. I'll start with the MMA meeting and trade show in Boston, and really it was fantastic. I am so glad that I went. As a new counselor, I think it's a great way to kind of get your feet wet and understand the different organizations within the state, and people meet people from different areas. Just connected with people and talked about their towns and, our city and how we relate in different aspects as far as public safety and education and developing commerce here and businesses. So that was great. Also developing relationships with the mayor and, fellow counselors was wonderful. The biggest thing, I went to a couple of different workshops, but the one thing that I really wanted to try to focus on was green energy and clean energy and that kind of thing. So I did go to one of those workshops, and I also learned a lot. They had someone there from Northampton, and he is actually an energy manager there. And he has been for quite some time. Before that, he was on a board. So they actually had an energy board, and there's other towns and cities that were represented who also said that they have energy boards, not necessarily green energy, but just energy boards where, they can go out and get some kind of grants and that type of thing. So there's a lot of grants out there. There's a lot of information out there. And it might be some opportunities for us here. I know there are some things that we're already doing and we might not be getting benefits for, like, recycling up at the transfer station. I don't think we're, registered for that. I know that we are getting grants. Ross is working on grants, and we already received like $200,000. But each year you can get more, and evidently Northampton has gotten up to like 800,000. So, there's money out there to get. So it might be an area that we might want to pursue or talk about. So.
Thank you, Councilor.
Also,
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
One other thing, and I hate to be a thorn on the side, but I am continuing to get questions about the Public Service Department on Hodges Cross Road and what exactly, what services are down there. I know that there is, they're going to have the dog officer down there as well. So I guess the questions are, I don't know if it's all set up yet, and people are still in the process of moving and shifting. I'm sure, with the new leadership in City Hall and everything going on, I'm sure everything is probably moving and shifting. But, some of the questions are, if the water department's down there, I know we pay the bills with the treasurer department. If you have a question about your water bill, do you come to the city hall or do you go down there? The cemetery department, is the cemetery department down there? Will they be doing dog licenses down there? I mean, just some questions. And I'm wondering if there's some kind of format that we can use, or just basically have just a quick reference guide of, what the departments are and where they'll be located and who you can contact.
Should be easily done.
All right. Councilor LaForest.
So I won't read my report, which is really in draft form, because we received so much information at the conference that I'm still, reading through a lot of the ancillary materials that we received. So I just, want to say a couple of quick things. So, to add to what Councilor Cohen and Councilor Harpin shared, this was the 39th annual meeting of the Massachusetts Municipal Association, which everyone calls the MMA, that took place on the last Friday and Saturday at the Heinz Convention Center in Boston. It was a great opportunity to, get to know Mayor Bernard and both of the councilors better, and to learn about the Commonwealth and the city with them, together with over 1,200 municipal leaders from across the Commonwealth. I wrote here, I was continuously reminded of the respected place North Adams holds across the Commonwealth, as many fellow municipal leaders shared stories of visiting our area, growing up here, attending North Adams State College or MCLA. Many shared with me their admiration for the gains North Adams has made in its development of a new local economy. I talk about that a little bit, and I do say, while North Adams faces the same challenges as any other community in the Commonwealth, it is clear that leaders from across Massachusetts are paying attention to what North Adams is doing right. So I know that we certainly have our challenges, but North Adams holds a place of respect and esteem across the Commonwealth. This was an opportunity to listen and learn from seasoned leaders and lecturers, an opportunity to network and build relationships with some of our most engaged leaders. I did write, and I'd like to share what I've written here verbatim, that I would be remiss if I did not commend former Councilor Lisa Blackmer on making North Adams a respected participant in the MMA, which she has served in many capacities, most notably as president of the Councilors Association. She's clearly well respected by leaders from the governor to the Secretary of State and so on, mayors and councilors from across the state. And she made sure that Councilor Cohen, Councilor Harpin, and I were introduced to many important figures in the MMA in the state. And I wrote, these new working relationships and friendships will help us maximize our work here as councilors in these chambers and to advocate for North Adams in the development of municipal policy at the state level. And so I just want to thank her for the time she spent with us while she was there. I go on to talk about some of the various events that we attended. Tonight, Governor Baker's actually giving his State of the Commonwealth address, and at the conference on Friday morning, he did share that he's including in the 2019 budget a 3.5% increase in discretionary municipal aid to the cities and towns across the Commonwealth. Something to the effect of $38 million and a $118 million increase in Chapter 70 school aid. So there are good things happening both in the city and the state. I won't read all of this, but I did select conferences and breakout sessions, based on my, assignments from President Bona and the mayor, and so I attended Marijuana Law, the Way Forward for Municipalities. That was a great opportunity to learn more about the challenges and benefits of retail marijuana in the state, which again was approved by I think 53% of the voters in the state and over 60% of the voters here in North Adams. Successful and effective land use and zoning policies. which has a lot of benefits for the work that we'll do moving forward as we get closer to some of the fruitions of the 2030 plan. And I also attended a session on leading the way to a thriving workplace, which, as North Adams continues to move, sort of catch up in some ways and to move forward with technology and development of our departments, those will be great tools for myself and the council going forward. And then I just wanted to encourage all of the counselors to visit the MMA website. All of the materials are available on the website that were presented during the breakout sessions and the keynote addresses. So, I'm glad and grateful to have attended the conference.
Thank you. Any other counselors' concerns? So in the future, this will be sort of broken apart more. You'll be able to do your liaison, I'm going to call them more updates where they don't have to be specifically reports. And then if you do have event notices or anything like that, there'll be a specific community events for that. One thing, actually, and then the mayor. Do you have anything you would like to say?
Well, I will just thank Councilor LaForest for stealing a good chunk of my book report.
I'm sorry.
No, but I do want to thank the councilors for their time and their attention to MMA. The really critical thing, as Councilor LaForest mentioned, is that the governor's budget will be released tomorrow, including the elements that he mentioned. That increase in Chapter 70 funding is broken up into, again, two parts. It's $15 million earmarked for relief for communities that are welcoming students who are displaced by the hurricane in Puerto Rico. So the balance of that $103 million is basically foundation budget plus some relief on insurance cost escalation. So we're really not seeing a lot of increase on education funding. The other discretionary piece that's built into there is $200 million in new transportation funding through Chapter 90. The message through MMA was it really should be 300, and they're going to be working on an advocacy position to take care of that. Otherwise, it was, as everyone said, a chance to hobnob and confabulate with my fellow mayors, which, as a new mayor, was very valuable. And the one other piece I would highlight is I attended the annual meeting of the Massachusetts Intermunicipal Insurance Association, or MIA, and attended that specifically to receive on behalf of the city a risk management award in recognition of work that the city and specifically the North Adams Public Schools did. And I'd like to credit everyone in the city finance and school finance offices, and particularly former business officer Nancy Zeider, who was instrumental in securing that award.
I'm going to just end it before we go to say, ask people to please be patient with the Public Service Department when it comes to potholes, because this weather is horrible for potholes. I was all excited a few days ago when I saw them all filled in, and today they're empty. And unfortunately, when it comes to cold weather, water, and ice, doesn't matter if you put cold patch or hot patch in those holes, they just come right out with this rain. So I have a feeling it's going to be a really bad year for potholes, and we're going to hear the complaints. The mayor's going to hear the complaints. I guess the best thing is I just usually forward them to the mayor and public service, and they probably already have it on a list of 200 other potholes. But, be patient. It's not going to be a good year for that. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.